Hey, we're Josh and Lisa Canning, and we are the founders of Persevere Together. We support Catholic couples who have mental illness present in their marriage. Our goal here is to create content that helps you to understand what mental illness is, have you find hope that you can do it, you can persevere, and provide you some practical skills and tools based on our many years navigating this together. And so today's video, we wanted to create something, and I will just say, this is the fourth attempt to create this video. We recorded this entire thing, and what's the expression? The devil is in the details.
Yeah. Okay. So wait. So the first attempt was I tried to talk through this content myself, and this content, as you can tell from the title, is what does it feel like to have depression? We feel like this is important for couples who might be either one person's asking themselves, is this depression? Or perhaps you're wondering, my spouse who has depression, what is going on that I'm not seeing there? We want to bring clarity to you. But I tried to record this myself, full disclosure, and I took 2 long takes and gave up because, to be honest, it was just too hard to do by myself. It was too raw and personal. So we recorded a live last Friday for, I believe it's Mental Health Awareness Month and, Awareness of Depression Day. And we recorded for 23 minutes without audio. We had no idea. And that was live on YouTube. So here we go, take 4.
The devil's in the details, because it's not like we don't know how to go live on YouTube. So there was clearly something at play there that didn't want this to get out. So this is the 4th attempt, but we believe that this video is really important because it can be very difficult to explain what it feels like to have anxiety, depression, insert other mental illness. And why I think it's important is we want this particular piece of content to be something that you can forward to somebody and say, hey, Josh and Lisa put into words something I haven't been able to articulate myself. And that it can become a jumping off point for conversation, for healing, and for your next step in your journey of healing and growth and trust in the Lord.
Yeah.
So we really want this to be, again, we hope that it summarizes or identifies, makes clear, makes more articulate what you are feeling. And that's really our goal here. So it is going to be a little vulnerable. Josh, thank you very much for being willing to be vulnerable on this topic.
It's funny we have to keep doing it because I told Lisa after the last recording we did, I think that's the rawest video we've ever done. And I'm so glad it's over. And then it was it was not recorded.
So here we go again. It's time to get all raw and vulnerable. So Josh, I'm just going to begin by asking you a very simple question. What does it feel like when you are struggling with depression and anxiety?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is it feels like a loss of self. It feels like, in a way, it's going to sound dramatic, but it feels like, in a way, almost like a mini version of death, kind of, because you're kind of like there one day, and then the next day, you're all of a sudden, it's like it's like you're a different person. Different in terms of your energy, different in terms of your focus, different in terms of your outlook, different in terms of, like, for example, maybe you're experiencing irritability, maybe you can't sleep, maybe you're all of a sudden having frequent thoughts of death. And it's like, where did all this come from? And for me, it was a bit of a process recognizing that, I'd gone beyond workplace stress to a place where now there were observable changes in my personality, and I wasn't sure why it was happening and where myself had gone. So that's one thing I would say is it's a dramatic change in personality and outlook. Now, I should give a caveat. There is a reality called smiling depression where we might not notice any difference in the person we love. But perhaps the more typical thing, which I'm speaking to, is an understanding of significant shifts that have happened in oneself that are hard to articulate, even into ourselves. I remember a colleague saying to me when I was describing my anxiety and depression, saying, "Yeah, we all have bad days," and just feeling like, "Oh wow, he really doesn't understand actually what I'm going through."
Let's pause there for a minute and really talk about that, because I think everybody listening can kind of relate to a bad day. Maybe things don't go your way. you wake up, the baby has like gotten you up many times in the night. So you're like, oh, I'm so tired. This is like, I'm going to be such a bad day. We're not talking about a bad day. We're talking about something very, very different. So maybe describe, Josh, because you still experience these kinds of mornings. It was very, very prevalent when you were in a more depressive state, but you still experience, recently you've had these kinds of mornings where you wake up and you feel like dread.
Yeah.
So what does that, and again, I think everybody can relate to that. Like, oh, I don't want to change the diaper. Oh, I don't want to go to work. It's cold. It's raining. We're not talking about just like, I don't want to do something. It's a dread that's a lot more deeper than that. So what does it feel like, Josh?
It's a persistent feeling of hopelessness and a hopelessness that's connected to, I have a lack of sense that any good can be achieved. And where will I find the energy, therefore, to do what is before me today? So if you can imagine waking up and the first thought is, oh no, not again. Like you were maybe hoping when you went to bed last night because you've been going through a rough patch, tomorrow was another day and tomorrow will feel brighter. But instead, the first thing you think when you wake up is, oh shoot, can I just go back to sleep for another day? Could I just stay asleep? That's when it gets different. So it's like, you don't think like, oh, I just got to get a coffee and get going. Or, I got a lot of stress, but here's some things I can look forward to. One of the challenges with depression, one of the symptoms or types is a thing called anhedonia, which is a psychological term for the loss of joy in things that normally bring you pleasure. So imagine a day with no pleasure, with lack of focus and tiredness, no pleasure, no hope. And you're also thinking, therefore, there's no point and it'll always, always be like this. Like, it's like you wake up and the first thing you feel is almost like an abyss. That's what depression felt like to me. Never feel rested, never feel positive, never feel a sense of purpose or hopeness. So in a sense, it's just this sort of feeling of complete being lost and not feeling like you'll ever be found.
And then there's also, so it's hopeless. Like it's really like there's a lack of hope and it's pervasive. And I think that's just really important to like pause and highlight. This is not just something that you can like have a cup of coffee, go to the gym and feel better, although those things might help. But it's this very pervasive dread, which is fueled by this lack of hope, this sort of like there's nothing that's going to help. There's nothing that's going to make it better. It is very dire and very bleak.
And what can be difficult for married couples. So if maybe you've experienced depression when you're single, and that's obviously tough. Depression is isolating. What can be challenging when you're a couple or when you have kids that rely upon you is combined with all of that is a sense of impending failure, impending or consistent failure. I will be letting down the people that rely upon me again and again and again. I can't love my kids the way that I want to love them. I can't love my wife the way that she deserves. I will come up short in every aspect. And then it kind of leads into another symptom of depression, which is distorted thoughts about oneself. I, therefore, am a bad person. My family would be better off without me. My wife would be better off without me. She, for her own good, she should divorce me and find somebody else. We don't really, for me, those thoughts don't enter that much. We have a particular view about marriage as Catholics, but I know the temptation or the feeling of where that would come from, where someone might say, I should just push this person away because I am such a hopeless case. It would be better for everybody to just move on with their life and not be, anchored towards me.
And it's this distortion of reality. And I think, again, that's another really important point to pause on. So not only are we dealing with dread and hopelessness that nothing will get better, now we're starting to deal with what is just not reality. Like I would be better off if I wasn't here. And it's a huge distortion of self as well as just like people around you, which then of course leads to a bunch of shame, which is the other thing that I observe. Yep. What does that shame feel like? So now we're with dread and hopelessness. distortion of reality. Everyone would be better off without me.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have shame. What does that shame feel like?
It feels like a unsolvable problem or reality. If I've offended somebody in a acute sense, maybe I said something that was harsh or whatever, I can apologize and say, yeah, no, I'm sorry I did that. I'm going to try to make sure I never do that again, and I hope you can forgive me. When we feel a kind of sense of shame, the way that I sometimes experience it, it is unsolvable in the sense that I can't just apologize and it'll go away, because it's not just that I've done something wrong, it's that I am fundamentally wrong. Like, I am built wrong. I am just inherently so flawed. One might even think, perhaps not articulating, but I'm a mistake, and therefore all I can do is put on the best face I can and try my best. But deep down, like, I am wrong, and that I'm bad. That's what shame feels like.
It's pretty bleak.
Yeah.
Like, again, this is not a just smile and get through it type of thing. Like, these thoughts about oneself impact so many different things. And if you could put a visual to it, because some people really like think in visuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had to visualize what this dread and hopelessness,
drowning,
this distortion of reality,
drowning. It's like, it's just like either like loss of ability to swim, and so you're swallowing water and trying to keep your head above water, or maybe you're kind of swirling around a little bit, and you just can't beat the current, but essentially you're just trying to survive as long as you can, but without a sense of that there is going to be a good sort of solution. That's the hard thing. I mean, I'll get really raw for a second. I don't know if people can relate to this, and this might be hard to listen to. So, I mean, I recognize, again, this is not a fun episode. The purpose, again, is just to help bring awareness. If you're supporting somebody who has depression, there might be things that are just really not obvious to you. It might look like just tiredness or laziness or irritability. And these could just be symptoms of what's going on a deeper level that person's having a hard time dealing with. But for me, with my mind, which I have not figured out how to completely heal, if I'm in an anxious phase, I will wake up sometimes in the wee hours and be thinking about mistakes that I maybe have made decades ago. Like, I could have not said this. Maybe I hurt this person's feelings or whatever like that. Even things I've been, repented of or been sorry of. But like, if one were to look at my list of self-accusations, you probably would look at them and say, these are pretty normal. Like, these are just growing up. These are just things that happen. Everybody, we're social beings who will sometimes hurt feelings or offend people, even our friends. But my mind's always looking for the next stick to beat myself with. And that's, I think, probably not normal. I don't think everybody experiences that. But I mean, yeah, that's one manifestation, I guess, of my anxiety and depression, is the sort of self-accusation. I've heard it described in this book, The Catholic Guide to Depression, that depression, one way of describing it is anger turned inward. And somehow that is something that I have experience of. And there's probably a lot that could be unpacked there, but that's one thing that is tough, that would not be obviously apparent on the outside.
I can't help but think how tiring that must be.
Yeah.
Imagine like treading water and it just gets heavier and heavier. Your legs are getting more and more tired, and you have no sense of like relief is coming. That must be so tiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I mean, it's not always severe. And sometimes, you can look at it objectively and be like, that's kind of silly. I can laugh at that. But then there's times where we recognize it's not rational. At the level of my reason, I can say, this is irrational, and this is not useful, and this is not who you are. And then there's times where, again, depression, the way it can impact your thoughts, your feelings, your focus, your everything. you recognize it's irrational, but you can't override the irrational, and that can be very frustrating. Obviously, it's like, I know this is not true, and yet on some like deep level, my emotions think this is true, and I can't wrestle it away from that. So that can also be obviously very frustrating.
From the perspective of the supporter, you know, watching this happen, you know, to go back to that visual of the drowning, like I kind of, in my mind's eye, it's like almost like a turbine, you know, and you're kind of treading water, but the water is actually moving, so it's even harder. And what it feels like often as the supporter is like, I have my hand and I'm like, just grab it, like just grab it, like it will, like we can let me help, like let's do this together, you know. And so we're probably going to do a whole other video about what it feels like for the supporter, because there's a whole set of emotions, I think, in the person supporting, because you know, it can be very hard to watch. But I hope what this video does is it actually paints the picture of how grave it can be. It can actually, I wonder if this helps if somebody says something like, oh, just pray it away, or just, you know, it's just a bad day, like it'll be better tomorrow. Because my observation of diagnosed mental illness is that for many people, it is not better tomorrow.
Right.
It can get better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And there are many things that one can do to help, but just to really understand that this is not like pretend. This is not somebody being lazy. This is not somebody trying to avoid responsibility or abdicate from important tasks or what have you. Yeah. This is a really challenging situation where reality is not accurate, like that their perception of reality is not accurate. Thank you for being so vulnerable.
Yeah, no
today.
problem. No problem. And just to give maybe a concrete thing, because people might be saying these are feelings, but like, how does that manifest? I mean, yeah, like my spouse is tired or whatever, but one way in which we rarely acknowledge the I guess severity of it was, I was changing our one of our kids' diaper. We only had 2 kids at the time, and the process of trying to change a diaper with a child who was fighting me and just being a kid, but like just didn't want to have her diaper changed. You know, like I got so overwhelmed by that process that Lisa could hear the tension in my voice and came and, you know, supported me. And I went into my room by myself and sat down and just cried, because I just couldn't, like, the spirit was willing, but the flesh was weak. I just could not be myself. And I want to turn that around though and say, like, so I've had seasons like that, and they don't have to last forever. And there are really things that we can do, baby steps that we can take to come out of a really desperate time like that. So I don't want to end on the dark, you know, even if it's something you've experienced every day of your life. I believe there are seasons where things are going to be tough, and there are seasons where things are going to be brighter. We can think of the literal seasons. We're in fall here in Canada. It's going to be getting darker. But there's also really beautiful days. But we have to maintain hope and choose hope. And even when the emotions are saying there is no hope, you know, we have to say, no, there is hope actually. And my feelings, they are what they are. I can acknowledge them, but they don't necessarily have to have the last say. Give them their chance to speak, but they don't have to have the last say. So please remain hopeful. In our community, we try to give practical tools and steps and you know, thoughts that might help you through these difficult times. But I have come out of it more than once, you know, and to the extent that now when it happens for shorter periods of time, it doesn't knock me off my feet the way that it perhaps once did. So please remain hopeful. I mentioned how there's the distortion of self and how difficult that can be. I think we need to let the Lord remind us who we really are. And this is really important. I think our faith, it can give a different shade to what's happening that would be almost impossible to have without our faith. Jesus reveals the Father's love to us and reveals us to ourselves. And so we have to let God speak into this. So I'm just going to read from Psalm 139. I won't read the whole thing, but I'm just going to pull it up on my Bible app on my phone. If you just give me a moment. I can remember how to use my Bible app. But so, yeah, about a week or so ago, the first reading was from Job. And as we know, Job lost everything in his life and had every reason to be experiencing depression. He literally lost his entire family and all he had. And God, in a way, challenges him and says, do you know everything? Did you set the heavens and the seas in its space? Do you know what it's like to walk on the bottom of the ocean? The Lord reminds him, I have more of the picture than you have. And then the psalm from that Mass is Psalm 139, and I'll just read part of it. And it starts, Lord, you have probed me and you know me. You know when I sit and stand. You understand my thoughts from afar. You sift through my travels and my rest. With all my ways you are familiar. Even before a word is on my tongue, Lord, you know it all. Behind and before you encircle me and rest your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, far too lofty for me to reach. Where can I go from your spirit? From your presence, where can I flee? If I ascend to the heavens, you are there. If I lie down in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the dawn and dwell beyond the sea, even there your hand guides me. Your right hand holds me fast. If I say, surely darkness shall hide me, and night shall be my light. Darkness is not dark for you, and night shines as the day. Darkness and light are but one. You formed my inmost being. You knit me in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My very self you know. Friends, we can rest. We might experience darkness, but for God, the darkness is light. They are the same. And God sees us and is with us. As the psalm says, where can we flee from God? So even in the midst of the despair, the hopelessness, the dread, you can rest knowing that God is there, God's hand is on you, and there will be brighter days ahead. So hang in there. Bless you, and come back next week because, well, next week, it'll probably already be done, but we're going to record a video about what it's like for the supporting spouse to be loving somebody going through depression. And we're going to put that up on the screen. So you can click that. That should be right there. And thanks for joining us today.